Hello, 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 hello. What's up, guys?
Hello, everybody.
Hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody's doing great. Happy Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, almost Christmas time, so we thought we would change it up a little bit. You know,
Yeah,
it is the season.
what one on the RF?
Yeah, how's everybody doing? Just leave a comment in the chat. I could know soon there. You know, and if there
Yeah.
are any new faces joining the live for the first time, just leave a comment.
Yeah, make
I
we know
could
you're
know.
there.
I could know.
You
I could
know?
know.
Welcome to another session.
Welcome to another session.
Yes, I think I have been enjoying this Sunday evening circle chill time. You know what I mean?
I look at chill with the circle. I like
Yeah,
it.
man. It has
I
been
love it.
good. Yeah, so we want to big up Siobhan, we want to big up Dion, we want to big up Brittany, John White. Hey,
I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, guys. So,
Brittany and Brittany.
yeah.
I want to make sure it's what them. Yeah, and everybody that's joining, welcome.
Welcome. So tonight or this evening, I don't know where you are. So this evening we will be having a very impactful discussion.
Yes, we
Something that is kind of a touchy topic because a lot of people don't know how to talk about it.
will.
You know what I mean? So tonight we have a very, very special guest with us.
Yeah, but more want to know, as my shirt say, I'm a dress say, it's good vibes, right?
Straight.
So yeah, even though we're talking about trauma tonight, we want you to know it's a safe space, it's a positive vibe, and feel free to ask your questions and feel free to let us all get whole together. Remember, last week we had shared that we really want it to be a platform where people become whole, people become healthy. We want healthy people, healthy relationships.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah. And in that same breath, that's what this is about. This
Yeah,
is
man.
what the channel is about. This is what we are about. If we can help one other person, as we have shared in the past, we have a community. We have people that we can speak to and reach out to. And we know that a lot of persons don't have that. And so we are here providing a space, a safe space for others. So you did that talk about who we will be having tonight.
But first, before we go to that, we just want to big up everybody for supporting the channel so far.
Yeah.
I know as you realize the channel is growing, the subscribers are growing, and we just want to big it up.
Thank
making
you.
You know we appreciate it. And in the same time, as we are on the road to 500, continue to share, continue to tell a friend, and continue to like and to comment because we appreciate it. And I mean,
And
so
tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend.
yeah, because the discussion is good, the vibe is great for everybody. I see a lot of silent viewers. We just want
Big up on
big
yourself.
up on yourself,
Yeah.
too, you know. And remember to like and to comment because we love to hear your feedback. So for this session, we're encouraging everybody. If you have a question, share it. If you have an opinion, share it
Yeah.
as well. So
ready to introduce the guest now?
ready. So for this guest, I'm gonna put her up on screen. We have an very amazing, important person in our circle.
Yeah.
And her name is Sharika Anderson, a licensed, look at that, licensed
counseling psychologist.
counseling psychologist, yes. So, Minister Sharika Anderson hails from the parish of St. Mary, where she grew up with her parents and an older brother. She became a member of the Enfield Church of God of Prophecy in 2007 under the shepherding of Pastor Patrick Brown. Shortly thereafter, she relocated to Kingston in pursuit of her tertiary education. She became a member of the Ebenezer Tabernacle in East Kingston under the tutelage of Bishop Rudolph Daly and Pastor Sophia Mayer.
Since then, she has served the body of Christ unreservedly in various capacities. In 2018, she was appointed parish director for Kingston and St. Andrew Youth and Young Adult Ministry, where she served 4 years. On January 31st, 2021, she was ordained a minister of religion in Church of God of Prophecy. Currently, she serves as the youth pastor at Ebenezer Tabernacle. Nationally, she is one of the youth camp directors. Miss Anderson holds a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology from the University of West Indies and a Master's of Arts degree in counseling psychology from the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. She is employed as a psychologist with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. She is an adjunct lecturer at New Covenant Institute, Bible Institute of the Caribbean and the Caribbean Graduate School of Theology. Miss Anderson is the founder of I Evolve Global, an organization which seeks to provide individuals with the tools necessary to evolve and become the best version of themselves through counseling and coaching and mentoring. She serves the nation of Jamaica as a justice of the peace. Miss Anderson is truly honored to partner with Christ for the advancement of the kingdom of God in the earth and looks forward with a great expectation for the manifestations of the sons of God. To know God and to make him known is her life motto.
Wow, wow, wow. With no further ado, we want to welcome this powerful.
Little
This,
what you tell her.
that's what I'm just gonna say. Sharika, welcome.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me.
And I just want you guys to know that she did tell we never did read all of it. But
Yes, please tell the people them, tell them. Thank you very much.
but we feel as if we should give people flowers when they're alive. And she is really a force to reckon with. And we just want you to know that while we share tonight, it is from a place of knowledge. She's certified and it is to help you. So, it's not a fian fian, as Jamaicans would say, thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we're not gonna talk about them topics here. I wanna get professional expertise to kind of elaborate on some of the things. And if you don't want to know more about Sharika, you see the background in her. You see the logo in her background. I Evolve Global. You can check it out.
Reach out to
That's the
her.
code.
Yeah.
Yes, man, definitely.
All right. So, welcome, Sharika. How you feeling?
I'm excited to share. I'm excited about everything that's mental health. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
And we're happy to have you. All right. So, we're just going to get right into it.
Straight.
Okay.
Right. All right. So, our first question is, what is trauma?
All right, so in its simplest form, we can say that trauma is lasting emotional response that often results from living through a distressful event, right? So, lasting emotional response that resulted from experiencing something that is distressing. But I also want to add a jam that this exposure can actually be actual or it can be threatened. So it doesn't have to be a directly lived experience. It can be something that is an actual experience or it can be a threatened experience, right? So I wanted to throw that in.
So, when you say a threatened experience, meaning if somebody would have threatened me about something and it
Yeah.
did not necessarily happen.
Right. So it can be that you have lived through it or you were actually threatened, right? So it's not that the person was actually, let's use molestation. It's not that the person was actually molested, but a threat was issued and that resulted in some form of emotional distress. But in addition to that, I also want to throw in that exposure varies, right? So for some persons, they live through it, right? For others, they witness it. So
Oh,
so so let's say I may have experienced robbery, right? In another
mhm.
instance, I may have witnessed it happen,
Right.
or I may be listening to you telling me about it. In all of
Oh,
these cases, it can result in trouble.
so you're
Wow.
saying me listening to somebody
Story.
story of being robbed can be
Yup.
traumatic for me
Wow,
Yes,
wow, wow.
ma'am.
and can affect me negatively.
Yes, and it can affect you the same way it would affect the person who was in the
Wow.
situation.
But I may never know that.
Me never know that. Even that.
Yes,
I
it's
never
a
know
fact.
that.
Wow.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
So,
that's why, John, if I may also add to that, that's why persons in the helping profession sometimes suffer from what is called secondary trauma because
Oh,
they're listening to other persons' traumatic experiences. So,
oh,
what that has resulted in is them experiencing trauma.
oh, so I guess that is why I think I've heard before that counselors seek counseling too.
Uh huh. You gotta go get help.
Oh,
wow,
wow.
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 Yep.
Oh, well, O'Shane was welcoming.
Yeah, yeah. I was welcoming the new commenters, Georgiana, Kadisha, uh, Dion Brown, Rashim. Big up.
Yeah, that started off just so deep.
Yeah, man. That
Yeah,
just
I wasn't
hit the
ready.
nail on the.
I'm
Um,
sorry. I'm sorry, guys, but it's a deep topic. So, we're
Yeah,
going all the way tonight, all the way.
whoa. All right. So the other question is, how can trauma affect your life?
In every way possible. Can we just start there? It
Wow.
affects our lives in every way possible. It affects how we interact with other people. But let me just step back. On a personal note, it affects our sense of safety, right?
Oh,
That's important. So
we
whether
should have
it
come
was
with a book.
Yes, you should have. Whether it was molestation, whether it was, witnessing somebody get killed, whatever it is, it affects our sense of safety. It also affects our sense of self. Who am I really?
true.
Right? And then that skews everything. It skews how we interact in relationship. It skews how we see the world. So a lot of us we start to see the world in a negative way,
Wow.
and it also affects how we regulate or fail to regulate our emotions. So you may see somebody fluctuating in mood. It's not that they're just moody, right? It could be that this person have experienced something traumatic and it's they're having a challenge regulating their mood. There are several others, but I'll just stop with those three.
Wow, wow.
Whoa.
So
It come like, whoa, my favorite word.
at that man, so we're talking about this is a relationship circle now. So when
Mhm.
we know about trauma, we know how
We
it
know it
can
can affect us.
affect us.
Yeah.
So in a relationship now, how vital is dealing
With your
with your
trauma.
trauma?
um It's very important, but I would recommend dealing with it before we get into the deep relationship,
All
right?
right.
But
Wow.
just in case we're already there and we did
Yeah.
not deal with it, what we have to remember is that trauma can affect how we relate to others. It affects us feeling safe. So you may have a partner that is distrusting or seem paranoid, but it's not necessarily paranoia. This
Mm,
person would have experienced or would have had traumatic experiences, and as a result of that they would have learned to see the world in an unsafe way. So
Mm.
even in the relationship they think that you're going to do something to hurt them, or they can be distrustful. Also, based on how you interact, you can trigger them without knowing. So
whoa.
if
Wow.
you shout or you do anything that may seem a little bit too controlling, that can come off, those can actually be triggers. So
Wow.
we have to be aware of who we're in relationship with. We have to understand their history so that we can better interact with them.
Wow. So, like for persons who probably don't know that they have trauma or they're dealing with trauma, how can they identify it?
So that's a good question because there's this research, this very common research that would put all of us in a box to say that we have all experienced trauma. It's called the adverse childhood experience. They did a study and they found that, listen, trauma is way more common than we would want to admit, right? And I know when we think of trauma, we maybe only think of death or molestation, but there's also emotional abuse. There's also growing up in a broken home, right? Witnessing mommy beating daddy. These are all things that are traumatic, right? Now, in order to identify it, you may have persons who generally feels unsafe, right? So even though you love your partner, you trust your partner, there's this level of distrust, and you can't even point out where it's coming from, right? Because you know this person has been faithful. Also, there's also multiple relationship, right? There is when you look on some of the decisions that your partner make, and you say, "Oh, I'm hurt."
Them
You,
end up
you did that. Like, help me understand,
yeah.
right? Because sometimes persons have experienced traumatic experiences, and one of the things trauma does is that it affects the brain. But
All
but I'll come back to that. It changes how the brain function. So you can look out for distrust, right? How they operate in the relationship, meaning um
you know the
multiple
no
partnership
yeah.
not make sense. Like you cannot understand how did you make that decision. The decision making may be skewed, problem solving just not adding up. These are some of the things. Also heightened sensitivity, like um they are so overly conscious of their environment, very fearful, easily for example very nervous, right? Very nervous. So those are some of the things I can look out for. So when you find somebody who is fearful and you say everything afraid, they're too afraid, man, maybe that person has experienced some trauma and they have not necessarily expressed that to you as yet.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Diane, you had said give one example. Give one example of just hurry up and tell us what's the example that you wanted her to give one more example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because for me, I think me and Jamila has been married for over 3 years now. I can't say over 3 years. I said
Yes.
3 years now. Yeah, and like personally, I would have thought that I knew who I was, both physically, mentally, and every alley, and that me all right. But since being married, like there would have been certain things that would have happened that triggered responses that were not very common to me, and
Mm-hmm.
like it wouldn't have been until earlier this year that I would have understood that these reaction or these triggers were not coming from the marriage. It would have been coming from the past, something that
Mm-hmm.
happened to me a couple of years ago back that I thought that I would have fully dealt with and that I would have fully recovered from, not
Mm-hmm.
knowing that it would have still be playing some kind of role in how I react to certain things or my mood in a certain way. And me never realized until earlier this year that trauma can, even though you think you have dealt with something, until you seek professional counseling or until you fully understand that trauma can follow you for years when you
Yes.
deal with it, it not fully deal with.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
that's
think
a
that,
fact.
Yeah.
that's something that I learned this year. That
Yeah.
Right.
acknowledged this year because when Jamila said "Oh, something wrong, I said no, me all right, me deal with them thing there.
Nothing no wrong with you. Not true.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the truth, Oshane. I'm happy you raised that because sometimes in relationship we focus on the present and the future, right? But
Mhm.
we bring our past with us in the relationship. We don't drop it off. So
Right.
sometimes we're in the relationship dealing with things that we were exposed to in relationship way back when. And it's
Wow.
just now manifesting because now is when the situation triggered a particular response in us. And that's why
Right.
sometimes you can't understand it because you say, hold on, This
Yeah, I never
this
deal
thing
with this
just don't make
earth.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
It don't make sense because as a
Or
rat
where
said,
did this
nothing to do
come
me.
from? Or where
Yes.
did this come from all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Diane had said to give us one more example of how it affects us, as in how trauma affected us.
All right. So trauma results in severe and persistent emotional problems. So when you can't understand the emotional problems, chances
Right.
are trauma happened somewhere. In addition to that, health risk behaviors because trauma affects how the brain function. I'll talk about that shortly. So it affects how we reason. It affects how we make logical decisions, right? It affects our sex lives. Persons who would have experienced sexual trauma will tell you that sometimes it's not the most pleasant experiences for them. And
Right.
some things that their partner would want to do or would want to enjoy actually act as triggers for them. So it affects their sex life.
Wow.
I mentioned trusting others, but also difficulty holding down a job. You ever see some people yet? They're moving from job to job to job to job to job to job to job. There is instability. Listen, trauma is not easy. You're having
Right.
difficulty coping with change. It can also be as a result of trauma.
Trauma. So that means that probably trauma can mean like changes too. Too
Oh,
much.
that's what we say we cry. Me, I experience drama, right? All right. So the other question that we have is how does childhood trauma manifest itself in relationships, or how does it affect it? Well, I know that you kind of started a while ago, but like, how does it manifest?
All right. So one of the things I mentioned this earlier is that trauma teaches us that the world is not safe, right? So it basically teaches us not to trust people, not
Wow.
to trust others, or persons are always out to harm us, right?
Mm,
So that's the basic of it, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into the brain aspect of it. So what trauma does is that trauma can actually shape our human development. It shape how we develop. It's actually that powerful because it affects brain chemistry and it affects how the brain function overall, right? There are different parts in the brain that like you have the amygdala, which is the fear center. What trauma does is that it causes this part to be overly active. So that is why the person is always fearful. Trauma does that. But not only that, it affects the prefrontal cortex, which deals with logics and reasoning and decision making, right? So imagine you have the fear center always saying, being afraid, being afraid, being afraid. But the part that's supposed to help you make rational decision and logical decision is underdeveloped. So when you see people making some of the silliest decisions in the relationship, trust me, dig deep enough something may have happened to affect how the brain functions. And then they can't
wow.
regulate their emotion. Right? So angry outbursts. I just can't control it. Sad for days. I just can't control it. Because trauma does that. So imagine now as a child you had that experience and it changed how your brain functioned from a child. So you're growing up and along the way you're making bad choices, poor decisions, yeah, and all of that throughout your life. So guess what? You're still having traumatic experiences, but it started when you were a child.
Wow.
It started when you were a child. So you are engaging in high risk behavior. You don't even understand it. But the logical part of your brain now work. So of course you're going to engage in risky behaviors. You're going to have multiple relationships. Or you may start to use drugs to cope with the guilt and the shame that you feel as a result of this trauma.
So when you say multiple relationships, you mean having more than one partner?
More than one partners, more than one sex partners, engaging in transactional sex, long list.
Wow. Wow.
All right. So having spoken about all of that, how do you deal with it? Like, how do you deal with, or how do you process trauma?
All right, so just before But just before I get to how you process it, I also wanted to mention that um, in relationships, right, in relationships, when we have had a traumatic experience, we have to be mindful that these persons, once we have had trauma, it can affect our self-esteem, right? So you may be with a partner that is overly self-conscious, right, have low self-esteem, dealing with guilt and shame. When we come into the relationship, we're carrying that, we are carrying that with us. So you now have to be mindful and know how to deal with somebody who is struggling with their self-image. They don't like themselves because of what happened. They don't believe that I am worthy of love, so they keep pushing you away. Right? So these are all dynamics that affects the relationship. Now, how you process it, that's a great question. That's a very great question. You have to go back to the trauma in some way. I know ideally what we want to do is just forget it. Forget it happen, you know? Push it deep in our memory. Don't talk about it. Don't dig it up any at all. But the truth is for us to get through it and to get past it, we have to talk about it. There is no two-way about it, right? So in processing our trauma, we have to revisit it. But then we need a safe space to do so. So we may not, so as partners in a relationship, we have to be willing to create a safe space for our partners to talk, else you're not hear anything. So safety is a critical part of processing, but persons can also find additional ways. So in addition to talking, find an outlet. So journal, right? Some persons are into drawing. You can also draw. If it is story writing, seek professional help. I'm so happy that in this day and age, persons are not so opposed to seeking professional help anymore. But these are some of the ways that we can process it. What is important to know too, Jamila, is that there's no timeline for processing trauma, right? So I may be
Oh,
processing the same trauma for 30 years, and
over and
I
over.
just need space and time to process it and to deal with
Wow.
it, right?
Yeah,
And don't judge
but
me.
then in that case, though, share, like, how do you as a partner deal with that? Like, how do you as a
So,
person or partner deal with that? And then two things: how does the partner deal
mhm,
with that? And then how do you as a person? Cause sometimes you might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm saying this again, or I'm going over this again. I don't want to say this again. I don't want to tell the person again. Like, how do you deal with that?
all right. So, as we talk about recovery, trauma recovery, one of the things we have to acknowledge is that it's hard. We have to acknowledge that it's a process. It's not a magic one kind of thing. You wave the magic one and I'm good. So you have to give yourself grace and patience. And you have to be willing to say, boy, husband, I know it's been 10 years. You have been very supportive, but I was
But
still
I'm still
triggered
there.
yesterday.
I'm
And
still
and
here.
I'm still healing and I'm
Mm.
still working on it. Please be patient with me. And then you also have to be patient with you and understand that, listen, there is no timeline for you to get over this.
But then what if you feel as if um like you're tired of talking about the same thing, so you don't want to just be by yourself, you just want to experience all this by yourself, you just want to take on this by yourself. Like, how do you move from that, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, and that's one of the very thing that we don't recommend. So it's tempting to want to isolate, you know.
Right.
Just let me deal with my problems on myself by myself. When I have gotten over it, I will come back and we can work through it. But it actually works better in when you have a support system, right?
Mm.
Because when you're in your mood, all you're going to see is a negative. So you're going to need somebody to say, but Jamila, member said this used to happen and this is not happening anymore. I mean,
Right.
the 10 other things still happening, but there is growth in at least one area, right? So you're going to want somebody to be able to help you to celebrate the wins, right?
Right.
So
Right.
you have to be willing to accept the help.
Mm.
Accept the help. And some of us, man, we just think we need to do it alone. Let me isolate. But
Yeah.
no, allow your partner to journey with you. And I can guarantee that that will also build the relationship and add depth to it.
Yeah. Diane asked, how does a single person deal with it?
It's similar, right? So it may not be a spouse, but it
But
can be a family member or
yeah.
a friend or an accountability partner, somebody that will provide that safe space and will not judge you. That's the last thing we need. Somebody like I said, Jesus, peace, Diane, Dion, sorry, we're going over this again. Like, I spent 2 hours on the phone with you and we
Oh,
talk about it and we make progress and we're right back there. No, you don't need
right.
that kind of energy. You don't need that
Yeah.
kind of energy at all. Make sure that it's persons that are willing to journey with you.
Wow.
You have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, these are some good gems that are dropping because I understand the isolation thing. Because I've been in that position a lot of times,
Mhm.
stuff and wanting to be by myself. Actually, I mean, through some of those same scenarios that I was mentioning earlier, me and Jamila would have is like I would put up this wall and want to block out everybody else. Don't want to talk about it, don't want to express it, just want to deal with it alone. So I understand and dealing with it alone, sometimes it takes longer to deal with and sometimes it's like you just want to remain in that space that you are in.
Mhm.
Good.
Yeah, and the truth is sometimes we get stuck in that space. And
Yep.
instead of healing, we find
We get,
ourselves stuck in the same position.
yeah. Diane, Diane said, what if you don't have anybody?
That's
You don't have
understandable.
no support system, nothing. What you do?
That's
Like what?
understandable.
Uh,
I would imagine there may be a few persons in that position, but then go see a professional counselor. Go pay them
right.
to listen to your talk. And on the flip side is that sometimes it's not that we don't have anybody, it's just that we are not willingly letting anybody in or allowing them to be a part of our traumatic experiences. So we shut everybody out. So of course, you're not gonna have nobody. If you don't let nobody in, then nobody not gonna do that. It is as simple as that, right?
Why?
But we
Yeah.
have to step up and say, listen, Jamila, listen to me, girl. I
Yeah.
went out on the road yesterday. I saw a man in the red shirt and I was triggered because the person that abused me, he was wearing red. And
Right.
that just sent me downhill. And I have to be open and transparent and reach out and say, listen, I don't business if you want to judge me. This is what I'm dealing with right now, and I need help. So I'm calling out. So sometimes it's not that we don't have anybody. Sometimes it is that who we want is not there, and who the persons that are there we don't want them.
I can attest to that, where I have been through stuff in my life, or I would have made decisions or I've done stuff, and I would want help. And yeah, people are there, and I felt like I couldn't trust them. But at the end of the day, I knew that I needed help. So if you know me, you know I can be very blunt. So I remember going to somebody and said, well, I need you to pray for me for this. And if you want to tell everybody, that's on you. But I need help. And
Right.
I coming to you for help. And I think sometimes that's it. Like we really have to recognize that if it is that we don't seek help, we're going to kill ourselves, not
Mm-hmm.
physically sometimes, but like emotionally.
Yep.
And we really, it takes a made up mind to just say, well, I came to you for help. If you want to walk and talk my business, then okay. But I know that I need help. Of course, that's not going to be an easy position to take. But at times we really need to step out of just that box just so that we try to get some help,
Yeah.
or even play a scenario then. If you
Yeah.
don't want to make it seem like it's you, play out a scenario to somebody else then to say, I don't have somebody in this situation or whatever. What would you do? What would you
Yes.
have done? Like, give me
Yes.
an opinion on this. Try to use a way now to get some information or get some help, or maybe I don't know, Sharika, if you think this a madness, but go. I used to say, go waterfront, go up gardens, go somewhere, sit down and talk it out. Just
Mhm.
talk it out in the open space, something. But just don't hold it inside. Write it until you are able. And I made a concept, Sharika, but I'm just saying. Write
Yeah.
it until you are able to really say to at least one person.
Yeah. And then like for males or the man them in general, society paints a picture for us not to really express ourselves emotionally in a sense that want to talk about our struggles or stuff like that because they paint a picture as if it would maybe demasculate
Yeah,
us or allow us to feel less than
less
a
than a
man.
man.
And reality is, I can encourage all the male watching this that counseling or talking about a situation is a process of healing.
Right.
It really is because when you build up all of that and bottle up everything,
Yeah.
when the buckle full and can't take no more, you have to explode.
Push. Yeah.
That is true.
Explode.
And a very good friend of mine, not calling any names, right, once told me that the best investment you can ever make in life is investing in your mental health. And so sometimes buying a one shoes less to go to
Yeah.
a counselor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you can't trust somebody, then seek
Yeah.
help, because there are resources. um and in our very first episode, Brittany Miller would have spoken about some workplaces provide counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Try to find a way to just get some help.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just really felt heavy on that to just encourage you guys to get some real help.
Let me
Yeah,
piggyback on what O'Shane said about the men,
yeah,
not willing to talk. I remember I had this
yeah.
male client. He had requested to see me because clearly I'm not walking around looking for a client. So he requested to see me, but then when he came in the session, he said that him just don't feel to talk. And I realized that he was struggling, but it was the first session. We had not yet built rapport or relationship. So I beat around the bush with him, talk about, nothing really, nothing at all to build a rapport. And then I realized that he was into art, right? So he writes songs. So I said, all
Right.
right, this is what you do for your homework. Write me a song with the problem.
Yeah.
And that was easy for him to do, right? So he wrote in the song and he expressed himself like it was beautiful. I say that to say that the counselors or the therapists are equipped with the skills to
Right.
get you to tell your story. Sir is doing so good now. We don't even need to meet again. And I did that more than once. I gave him songs to write because that was his way of expressing himself. So him write the
Right.
song, then express him pain and him hurt and all of that. The counselors are trained to get you to tell your story. So don't stay away because you're like, oh, I don't want to talk or I can't talk about it. Maybe you can draw. Maybe you can paint, right? Maybe I can do something else. But that's why we need to go get the professional help.
Right. Boy, this feel like a live counseling
Yes, sir.
session. Hello.
Yeah,
Hello.
it really
Um,
is.
Jessica, I see a question. We're gonna ask it, but I'm going to ask a question before we ask that one. Because I think your question can kind of eventually wrap up the
Hmm.
thing. So let me ask, how can you bring down a defensive wall? So things
Well,
happen to you. We'll build up a wall. Like, how can we get this wall down now?
well, let me just help somebody out this evening and say that whatever your reasons are for building those walls, they were good reasons.
Yeah. Wow.
They were good reasons. You needed those walls to survive. You needed those walls to not lose your mind. So I just want to free you this evening and let you know that you needed those walls to survive and to cope in your world. So don't bash yourself or beat up on yourself too much for building up walls. Imagine if you didn't and everything was coming in and flooding in. Maybe right now you would have lost your mind. All right, so let me validate you by saying that it's a good reason to build up your wall. All right? So we
Permission to steal,
acknowledge that.
permission to steal that quote.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Right? They were good reasons. They were valid. Good job. All right? Well, how do you break them down? Because also, the thing with walls is that they keep out both good and bad. So the
Agree.
walls don't just keep out the bad; they keep out everybody because it's a wall. So I'm not letting anybody in. You know, like Jericho wall, we're very high and thick. That's how some
Yeah.
of our walls are. So initially, the walls were built to protect us, but the walls can also turn against us. So how do you bring them down? Find a good therapist. Let me start there. Secondly, revisit your story. Why did you formulate those walls to begin with? One, when did you erect them? The truth is, none of us were born with walls. But those were erected throughout our lifetime. Something happened. And as we revisit our story, we can say, wait, but I'm not in this situation anymore. I'm not in this stressful
Yeah,
relationship. My partner
that's
is faithful. So do I still need to have this wall up? But unless we revisit the formulation of the wall, then we may not know what's happening. Also,
right.
decide for you what emotional safety looks like. Because when you feel safe, you don't need walls. Let me say that again. So if you have up your walls in your relationship, that's because you do not feel safe. Safety is missing. You may not want to admit it, but it's true. When you feel safe, truly safe, you don't feel like you need to guard everything and protect
Or
yourself.
anything.
Yeah.
Good.
Practice allowing things in, gradually break down your wall when you recognize that, hey, I don't need to have it up again. So you can gradually do that. And then stay away from people who make you want to put up back your walls. Simple. Stay away from your triggers. So if it was the horrible ex-girlfriend, then don't keep a friendship with them. If it's the neighbor who you can't trust, then avoid them. Don't go back into situations that will demand that you put up an emotional.
My goodness. Yo,
Speechless.
that's so deep. That's so deep.
Yeah.
I
Let me
want
give you
everybody.
another quote. Let me give you another quote, Shane. Don't
Mhm,
break down the wall.
mhm.
This is for the spouses who love to force their spouse to speak. Don't break down the wall until you are prepared to deal with it. If you're
Yo,
not prepared to deal with it, make the
Whoop.
wall stay
Yep.
wow,
until the
wow,
person
wow.
is ready.
Guys, if you love that comment, just leave a heart in the comments. Just leave a heart. Reminding you just share the live, and also to tell a friend like the live and subscribe. This is
Um,
so powerful, so impactful. I love what we're discussing so far.
yeah, that last thing that Sharika said is really powerful. And I don't want us to miss it. And I don't want us to take that for granted. And I think Sharika, I might step a little further to it. That it's not just supposed to, it's friends.
Right.
Like if you're not ready to support your friends with whatever they have been through, make them stay. and
Don't
it,
force me
and
to
it's
talk about it.
right. And it's so true because like in relationships, if you really are not ready to support that person, as you would have said, Sherry, you won't understand. what the person is going through. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? And then
That's
you will
true.
probably make it even worse.
It is
And
definitely
then
true.
that's a more, yeah, like, wow. Do not force your spouse, friends, family to break down their wall if you're not ready to deal with it.
Exactly. That
Hi,
is so
Tarika. See
facts.
you, girl.
Hey,
Hey.
Terika.
But yeah, wow.
Wow.
Can pack up now. All right. How does a spouse help another person who has been raped, molested, abused?
Wait, Jam, just to check, are we going back to Jessica's question?
Yeah, I think we will do it after this because she was asking about coping mechanism.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How does a spouse help another person? So there are several do's and don'ts. As I said before, safety is important. So ensure that your spouse feels safe in your presence, right? You have to understand their story so that you know their triggers. So if you know that a certain cologne is a trigger and you love it from now till tomorrow morning, get rid of it. Because every time you wear it, that is going to trigger your partner. So they are going to be having flashback and reliving the horrible experience because of the cologne.
Wow.
Understand their triggers, know what trigger them. So if it is that the incident happened downtown China, but you love a restaurant downtown China, you're gonna have to find another restaurant because you and her cannot go downtown because whenever she goes downtown, she is triggered, right?
Yeah.
So spouses, you have to understand their triggered. Listen, listen to them. Allow them to speak when they want to speak. Nobody wants your pity. So don't pity them either. Give
Mm-mm.
empathy, understand their story, but not pity. You know them attack and them attack and crying. You're like, oh poor thing. Oh she a
Yeah.
poor thing. No, they don't want that. They don't want that. Also, believe them. Even if the stories don't shake, you know your business that. Believe them. It's not your place to say, but yeah, you didn't lead them on, or you know what
Yeah.
we always say? What were you wearing? But that have to do with anything.
Yeah.
You have
You
to
know,
make sure. Go ahead, Jam.
even before you continue, that's such a valid point because I would have had an experience. And I remember sharing it with somebody, and the person would be like, would, kind of initiate that I was at fault.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of knew that I was at fault. At the time, I wouldn't have known that I was at fault. But
Mm-hmm.
of course, when you revisit situations, you, the person, can say or think sometimes that, oh, maybe put myself in a compromising position, or maybe I said something that I shouldn't have said. But the person saying it to you, or your spouse saying it to you, just make it worse for you because you already are try process that, and you already are try say to yourself, how could I ever let this happen to me? Like, why
Mm-hmm.
would I ever let this happen to me?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had several kinds. And while the experience itself was bad, what was horrible for them was when persons did not believe them, one, or when they made it seem like it was their fault. Those two things will damage anybody for life. And when they learn to cope with the experience itself, just not having mommy or daddy or some close friend believe their story, that in and of itself is damaging. So spouses are when the stories don't shake it. It
Yeah.
no make no sense. It having gaps. Believe. Believe until you can prove otherwise. Also, let them feel like they're in control because persons who have been victimized or who have experienced sexual violence, they feel as though they have lost their sense of control. So in the relationship, they don't want to feel like you're controlling them too. So give them room to make decisions and allow them to exercise their right and their autonomy, right? Because it causes them to feel like, oh, I don't have a say. I don't have control over anything in my life. So those are some of the things that you can do. I've already shared some of the don'ts. Don't make them feel like you don't believe them. Don't ask them why you never said somewhere earlier, right? Or why you never report it? Why you
Yeah.
never tell your mother? Why you never tell me? Right?
Right.
Just be careful that even in your communication, you don't give them that kind of feeling like you did really get real for you?
Yeah.
Choo choo. And you never said nothing. You never shout. You never scream. You never bawl out.
Yeah. What
Because
did you do?
sometimes, yeah, what did you do? Them never did nothing. Them
Yeah.
never did nothing because they froze.
Yeah.
Right? And that happens. People literally freeze in these experiences. So
Or
we want to be careful.
or sometimes they ask, as you rightfully say, well you said it. Why you never report it? Why you never say something? Why you keep talking to the person? But I think people don't realize that sometimes when things happen to you, you are just so lost.
Mm-hmm.
Especially sometimes when it is people that you trusted.
Oh,
Like you
yes.
try to figure out, where do I go next with this person?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
what else do I do? Like
Yeah.
if I cut off this person immediately, then people around me will realize that something happened, and maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
not ready to share, or maybe I don't know if I should share,
Or how
or
to.
will people even believe me?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
as I right say, share, people probably will say, "Oh, you want it, and you make it."
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's so much that happens in that period of hurt or molestation or whatever that will set that person back so much that
Mm-hmm.
you believe, oh, you should have did come talk about it. Why I never talk about it? Well, you know,
Yeah.
like,
You did want it to.
yeah,
And
Wow.
you started.
you started.
Oh,
You
and
did want
most importantly, Jam, please don't tell anybody their story without their permission. If they confided in you, keep it. Keep it in the strictest of confidence because chances are them no want nobody else know. Them
yeah.
already a deal with them guilt and them shame and them pain. Them no want walk on the road and Mary a look on them. Aside eye them and say, see
And
her, watch her now.
and even as you said that just now, Sharika, how
But
do you deal with that guilt? Like you are the one that has been molested or abused. How do you deal with that guilt? That guilt of thinking that maybe it's you caused it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one
Yeah.
of the thing is, and I'll always promote professional counseling
Yeah.
because, as I said, the therapists, they're trained. So there's
Yeah.
this approach called CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which looks at the thought processes and help you to dissect those thoughts. Why do you feel like you caused it? And then we look on what are the supporting arguments. Is this fact or is it based on feeling? And then we're like, oh no, there's no fact to support this. And then as you come into an awareness that really and truly you have nothing to support your thought, then your thought come into alignment and your emotions also align. Right? So in dealing with guilt, it's hard by yourself to try to deal with it because guilt don't go away like that. It
Right.
don't go away like that. It doesn't, right? But when you get the professional help and they're able to help you to process this guilt, this feeling of guilt, where it's coming from, how it's affecting you, what is causing it to stay in place because it would have gone long time. But there are other thought factors that is keeping the guilt right there. So when you get help, then your counselor will help you to deal with it.
wow,
You wanted to add some.
I not even remember. I don't. To be honest, we can go to what
Yeah, we
Jessica
can
was
go to Jessica
asking.
question. And as we prepare to wrap up, guys, is there any questions? Anything at all? Don't feel afraid. Guys, if you don't want to ask it in the comments and you have myself or Ocean's number, you can always WhatsApp us. Don't let this moment pass and your question is
Instagram
not answered. Or
as
you
well.
can use
Jump in our
Instagram.
inbox.
We are OJ Williams everywhere. You can just jump right now into one of our social media pages and just ask the question and we'll ask it for you. We won't share your name or anything.
Mhm.
Yeah,
We
because we're
believe in
here. Yeah, we're
confidentiality.
here to help.
Mhm.
So sure.
This
Jessica's question is: could you discuss some coping mechanism that can be used to manage the repercussions of trauma?
Definitely. Thank you for the question, Jessica. All right. So Remember earlier I mentioned that you have to recognize what's happening first and foremost. So you need to know that this is what is happening, that what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing is linked to my traumatic experience. So that awareness is key. In addition to that, you want to gradually confront what has happened, right? Don't block it out. You know, one of the things I recognize with anxiety is that silence breathe anxiety. A lot of my clients who have anxiety attack, even before we get to dealing with the anxiety, just by talking about the million and one issues, the anxiety symptoms start to disseminate, right? Or start to dissipate. They start to reduce. They don't see them anymore. So talking about it helps. So try to confront it. Don't block it out. Don't bury it. I know it's painful, but go ahead and address it. In addition to that, you want to try to keep a daily routine, a normal routine. Trauma will want you to stay in bed every day, or you don't have the energy, you don't feel like you can go. But
So we
clearly establish a routine and try to stick to it. Also, try to exercise. Exercise have so much benefit, so much
Mm.
benefit, right? It's a natural antidepressant. It will elevate your mood naturally. Try to exercise. Relaxation techniques, right? So deep breathing activity. You can Google some of those to find out what kind of deep breathing activity you can practice. Mindfulness is also important, which is staying in the present, right? So if you feel like you are starting to feel anxious or you're starting to feel unsafe, try to focus on no. What's happening? No. Where am I? No. Right? Some persons say you can, press your feet on the ground to kind of help you with grounding. So you can come back in the present and know what's happening with you. Listen to music, gardening, meditation is also key because that helps you to stay in the present, right? It helps you to stay in the here and now. And know your triggers and avoid your triggers until
Oh,
you're in a position to face them without them affecting you how they normally affect you.
yeah.
oh, why? Sure, you spoke a lot, and
Wait.
some of
So
those.
before you go on, oh, I wanted to recognize Mommy Jadine. Yeah.
Of course, we got mommy all the
Welcome.
time.
Yeah, you can continue.
I was talking about some of those strategies that you've used. I actually overlooked some of them because, like, for the past couple months, I have been stressed out. But I have been consistent in the gym, so like my stress level, like normally for me when me stress to Max Jamila will tell you in a 2 days me I lose 5 pounds because my stress.
Mm-hmm.
Once we start lose weight, Jamila will say, actually, what's wrong? I make her talk about it or something like that. Because she knows me not normally lose weight like that. And I realized that being consistent in the gym has really helped me, like, because may I eat, I'm more positive with my thoughts and all of that, even though I know where I'm at regarding my stress level. But me never really know that it was a
Yep,
antidepressant.
it
So
is. It is very powerful. So we try to get all, once it's depression or anxiety or any form of mental health issue, we try to get you exercising because
mm,
it works.
and anxiety attack is a big thing, guys. So reality, as the counselor said, the certified professional counseling psychologist said, seek professional help. I have had anxiety attack and it never normal. I feel like me did have got dead.
Yep.
So may I encourage everybody, seek professional help because it is really important. And with keeping this week's live,
Yeah. Is there any question? So I know that throughout a lifetime TV, there's a deep conversation. And Rochelle says, interesting conversation. Um, yeah, I mean, as O'Shane said, anxiety attacks and panic attacks and Sharika, you can tell us all the other attacks that happen, they are real. And these things affect your brain to the point of you not wanting to do anything, you not wanting to. It's almost like you just out of this world. It's almost like you're here but you're not here, and that's why, as Sharika said, which I found well, Ocean I like was the exercising. I think my own was you saying that pressing your foot against the ground just to come back to reality. You know, that's something that I guess I would have never thought of or thought about. Yeah. So Sharika, as we wrap up, because I'm not seeing any question, is there any final words or words of encouragement or that you want to leave with us?
And I think I'll close with how we started, as the aim and the vision is to have better relationship. Better relationship comes from us being better people. And
Yeah.
so I encourage us, whether we're married or single, to take the necessary steps to become better. And better includes working through our traumatic experiences. It includes working through our mental health issues, so that when we show up in our marriages or show up in our friendships or even in our family situation, we are showing up healthy. And that in and of itself can lead to better and healthier and longer lasting relationship. It's not coincident why the divorce rate is so high. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so in order to prevent us going down that route, I strongly encourage us. The best investment you can make is investment in yourself.
Wow, 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 wow. Guys, remember, we've learned so much from Sharika tonight. You can contact her through I Evolve Global.
Yeah.
It's at I Evolve Global on Instagram, Facebook,
Facebook,
and also on
YouTube.
YouTube as
Yeah.
well. You can reach out to her, schedule an appointment, and if you don't know what, schedule it for somebody because you know somebody might deal with an issue.
And
Schedule it.
she's really good, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yes, man.
Really good. One of
You
my
saw for
counselors.
yourself,
One of
so
my
you
counselors.
witness it yourself, so you know that she's really good. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and staying with us. And as we discuss this, like I sat here and I was just like, oh my God.
wow.
Oh my God.
I think wow is the word for tonight.
Yes. I
Because
I had to be telling myself not to say whoa. It was that good, like so many gems, so many important points. And I really think that we want to end by saying go get help,
go
go
get
seek
help.
help. And
Mhm.
of course, before we end, we want to yet again big up everybody. Thank you all for coming, thank you all for joining, and big up our other YouTubers. I am Remnant JA, Throughout a Lifetime TV. I
I
Evolve
Evolve Global.
Global officially should everybody, God, guys, Lady Glenn, go and like and comment and share their stuff. Remember also to share, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. See, we have another testimonial to say that Sharika is really good.
Right,
And
right,
big up
right.
yourself, Sharika. But yeah, guys, thank you for joining. Remember, we're still answering your questions. You know, the questions that we asked on social media and people had sent them.
Mm-hmm.
We are still answering them. So you don't want to miss next week Sunday and the other Sunday and the other Sunday. Yeah. So remember, join us every Sunday at 7 p.m. Jamaica time. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you guys so much. And leave a like on this video on your way out. All right, guys.
Bye.
Love and love and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.